What up, nerds? Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today on the channel we're going to do something a little different. If you're new, this might be the first time you've seen me do one of these. If you've been around for a while, you know I've had a checkered past when it comes to tags because book tags generally ask the same questions over and over. It just has a different theme. I do like this one though, and that is the mid-year book freakout tag. Let's get into these prompts. Let me pull them up on my phone here. Prompt number 1. The best book you've read so far in 2024. And this book I literally just finished a few days ago, but it really is the best book I've read so far in 2024 for a multitude of reasons. I did go back through my list. I looked through every single book, and this one really is my favorite book of the year so far, and that is The Redemption of Morgan Bright by Chris Panettiere. I literally still had it sitting here on my desk from filming the review a couple of days ago. This is a psychological horror. It takes place in a mental hospital, an asylum called Hollyhock House. There's a girl who died on the road leading away from the asylum. Her sister, after the case has remained unsolved for a year, her sister Morgan decides she's going to come up with this false identity and have herself committed to Hollyhock in an attempt to get some answers for her sister's death. Whew, it's good, y'all. It's not just the story that made that one my favorite of the year. It was the writing style of the author. It was the themes that were explored. Just the depth of research. The antiquated, dangerous forms of treatment that were used on people in the past is that's just a horror story all in and of itself. This book and its plot never stopped twisting. It's so good. I'm gonna have to reread it again to make sure I didn't miss anything the first time. I'm sure that I did. It was just absolutely amazing. So that is my favorite read of 2024 so far. Let's see what question number 2 is. What is the best sequel you've read so far in 2022? Wait a minute, 2022? Holy crap, I'm going back in time. 2024. And the best sequel that I read in 2024 is The City of Marble and Blood by Howard Andrew Jones. This is a sword and sorcery fantasy series. It is phenomenal. The Dervan Empire wiped out Hanevar's people. They thought they also had killed Hanevar, but he survived. And I won't tell you how. That's fun to read about in the first book of the series. But after the Dervan Empire destroyed the city of Alanis, they looted it, salted the fields, and the people that they didn't kill, they sold into slavery. Hanevar's mission is to find the people who survived and set them free. And these two books are exactly that. Each chapter is a different adventure, a different scheme where Hanevar and his friends are going around the Dervan Empire and finding the Volani people and setting them free. It's so good. It is absolutely the best sword and sorcery fantasy I have read in years that I can remember. It quite possibly is the best. Question number 3 is, what is a new release you haven't read yet but you want to? Well now, that is Emily Henry's Funny Story. This one just came out in April. I haven't had a chance to work it in yet, but it will be very soon. The 4th prompt wants to know what my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and that is The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. The Fury of the Gods is the 3rd book in the Bloodsworn saga, which happens to have my favorite fantasy female character of all time in this series. The release date for this one is October, which means I'm gonna have to schedule in a reread of books 1 and 2. That just has to happen. I can't continue the series without rereading the first 2 books. I loved them so much. I just love anything by John Gwynne. Comment down below if you agree. Prompt number 5. What was your biggest disappointment of 2024? Y'all are about to be shocked. Well, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you're about to be shocked. Because my biggest disappointment of 2024 is a book by one of my favorite authors of all time, Stephen Graham Jones. The Angel of Indian Lake is the 3rd and final book in the Indian Lake trilogy. It has the most perfect and beautiful ending for this story. It just should have been a duology. It really should have ended in book 2. I found it a slog. It took me a long time to get through, but I'm not kidding. The ending was everything. when I reread the trilogy, I'll reread the first 2 books and then I'll just go and read the last couple of chapters of this one and call it a day. Let's see. Prompt number 6. What was your biggest surprise so far this year? This is another funny one, and you can blame it on Emily Henry because my biggest surprise is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. Not only is it my biggest surprise of 2024, it's the spiciest I've read this year and quite a while, probably since college. I was such a big romance reader in high school and college, and then real life happened, and I'm like, yeah. This is fantasy. It's not romance, it's fantasy. You know, one of my weaknesses when it comes to reading books is if they feature a serial killer. Well, this is a romance between 2 serial killers. Does it make sense now why I originally wanted to pick it up? And then I loved it. I flew through this book, and then I was able to get my hands on the ARC for book 2, which I've pre-ordered my copy of that one. I read and loved it. I loved that one just as much, but in a different way. Oh man. This is just one of those rare books that comes along every once in a while. It's in a genre you don't normally pick up, and you love it, and you're not entirely sure. Like, you're going, I shouldn't have loved this so much, but I did. And the majority of my friends that have now read it because I was just raving about it also loved it, and we all have different reasons, but the main one is it's just hilarious. It's one that's going to make you laugh, and certain things you'll never be able to look at the same way again. Ice cream being one of them. All right. Prompt number 7, favorite new author. Well, I happen to have them both here because I've already talked about them. Brynne Weaver being the first one, and I have another here. The other one is Howard Andrew Jones. Both of these authors, the first book in their series, I ranked 5 stars, and then immediately read more books by them, which I also ranked 4 stars or higher. And they're so completely different from each other. One is romance and one is sword and sorcery, but that's just your girl here. I'm crazy. Prompt number 8, ask me, who is my newest fictional crush? I don't have one. There wasn't anybody I read about in books that I just thought, man, if this person was real, woo! There wasn't anybody. So prompt number 9, newest favorite character. That would be Brian, a character from the 4th book in the Stranger Times series. Relight My Fire is the name of the book. It's written by C.K. McDonald. The Stranger Times is a paranormal urban fantasy series. The Stranger Times consists of articles of things that go bump in the night, and the people that work at this paper have always thought it was just a bunch of garbage until they started coming in contact with things that were real. And in the humorous and wacky events that are taking place in the 4th book of the series, one of the new characters introduced is Brian, who is a ghoul who is not house trained. It's just so funny because this character would just be randomly like walk down the street a little bit, pop a squat, do his business, pull out a Walmart bag out of his pocket and like pick it up and go put it in a garbage can, and he'd come back to the group. That's just one of the many memorable moments from this character. But yeah, Brian wins that category hands down, and he holds that one all by himself. Prompt number 10. Book that made you cry. Well, funny enough, it was my biggest disappointment of the year that made me cry, and made me cry it did. I cried the entire last chapter of this book, and I jotted up, and then I went on to read the acknowledgments written by the author. Yeah, I was bawling again like a baby by the time I got done with that. Prompt number 11, book that made you happy. Okay, so Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q's Sutanto. This one absolutely qualified for biggest surprise. I never had any interest in picking this book up, but it was chosen one month for the Literally Dead book club that's hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala. That book was chosen, and I thought, well, I'll get it from the library and I'll check it out. The first chapter, I wasn't sold, y'all. It was just this big character introduction. But by the end of chapter 2, I was like, wait a minute, this might be good. Oh my goodness. I just love this book. I love the characters. And I felt bad because all of these characters were murder suspects, but then again, they were Vera's murder suspects. And Vera isn't exactly qualified to be conducting a murder investigation, but you know, she's seen enough CSI and Law and Order. She's got it well in hand. Or does she? That book ended up being so dang good. I really hope it turns into a series. I think the author's open to it if her editor is. All right, let's finish this up here. Question number 12. What is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? Where is that book? It should be over here in my about to get read pile. It is The Fall of the Giants by Gregory Contaxis. This book is gorgeous, and it's one of those dragon wraps all the way around. This is book 2 in the Dance of Light series. It's a dark fantasy. I say dark fantasy, but I believe I'm going to have to change that to grimdark. The first book was a classic fantasy with a little bit of dark to it. Then the author wrote a prequel novella, and that sucker was so dark. It was delightful. Just loved it. I was hooked. Oh my gosh, I was begging for an opportunity to just read the arc for this one, and the author was so kind to send me a beautiful physical copy. And it is by far and away the most beautiful book that I have received so far this year. I don't know that anybody is going to be able to top this one this year. The whole series has gorgeous covers, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then the last prompt of this tag, which is just so unnecessary. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Only a couple of thousand. All of the books that are on my physical unread TBR, all of the books that I have stuffed on my Kindle, all the books that are on my want to read list that aren't on one of the other 2 lists, all of the books that belong to the series that I haven't finished yet. I mean, that's a ridiculous question. Who asked that of a bookworm? Silliness. But that's gonna do it for me today, y'all. Those are the books that I selected to answer the prompts of the mid-year book freakout tag. If you're a content creator, go ahead and make your version of this tag so we can all have a look. And if you're not, and you want to answer all or some of the questions in the comments down below, go right ahead. I would love to see what some of your favorites are, disappointments, books that made you cry. Let's hear all about it. Thank you all so much for being here today, for watching. Hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button down below on your way out. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.